Oh, look. There he goes.
I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna get you.
Is that a...
It's a
yeah,
guillotine.
It's a guillotine. Yeah. Didn't know they were French.
Do you honestly think you're
Could you be any louder? You really trying to trap yourself, dude?
I had never noticed it before. I was wondering if it would go off if he stepped on it.
Slide. So we're pulling it back a little bit. We did the, you know, last-minute decisions that changed history, or stuff like that. Now we're going back to the top 3 videos with disturbing backstories by Mr. Ballin. And given the fact that I can't remember how many of these there were, 9. Okay, there's 9.
Not as many as the photos.
But it also looks like there's some missing off here, which tells me that some of the stuff was either copyright claimed, or it was
Too violent.
or it was too much, and YouTube just like took it down, which does happen. And when it does happen, it's unfortunate, but oh well. I mean, it's kind of unfortunate, but what are you gonna do? So yeah, top 3 videos with disturbing backstories part 2. I know we did the one with the photos, and the last one had the story of Chris McCandless, or Alexander Supertramp, as that was his his pen name. And I think also in the last one as well we had so I think it was 9/11. It had the video of the woman who was dangling from the side of the World Trade Center, and that's just oof. You hate hearing about stuff like that, but that's just how it is. I mean, life's not pretty. Sometimes bad things happen to good people, no matter how much you don't want it to happen. So, anyway, I guess let's go ahead and drop right into this video with Mr. Ballin, and let's check it out. It's top 3 videos of Disturbing Backstories Part 2. Here we go.
Today, I'm going to share with you 3 progressively more disturbing stories, and at the end of each of them, I'm going to share with you the video that is famously associated with them. But before we get into today's stories, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right channel, because that's all I do, and I upload 3, 4, even 5 times every week. So if that's of interest to you, please offer the like button a ride home from soccer practice, but then don't show up. Also, please subscribe to this channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of my weekly uploads. Alright, let's get into today's stories.
Alrighty.
On April 9th,
Tornadoes used to
2015,
terrify me as a
residents of
kid.
the tiny farming community, Fairdale, Illinois, woke up to heavy rains outside and an ominous forecast. Severe thunderstorms were going to persist all day, and then at night there was a chance of a tornado. Meteorologists were telling residents of Fairdale that if you can, you should evacuate, because it's not worth sticking around for. But if you're going to ride out the storm, make sure you've taken the necessary precautions, and make sure you have a plan for how to get to a shelter if the storm gets really bad. That morning, some forecasters were saying this tornado could prove to be one of the biggest in Illinois' history. But most of the 152 Fairdale residents had lived here their whole lives, and they'd seen bad storms before, even tornadoes, and they had ridden them out before. How could this one be any different? You know, most of the time, the worst that happened was maybe a power line comes down and you lose power for the day. But unlike previous storms, this one was getting worse and worse by the minute, and by 6 p.m. that night, forecasters were no longer theorizing that this could be a huge tornado. They were outright pleading with Fairdale residents to evacuate while you still can. But despite these warnings, the vast majority of Fairdale residents stayed put. They were committed to riding the storm out. By 7 p.m., meteorologists were saying this tornado is imminent, and it looks as big or bigger than the last major tornado that came through Illinois that killed 8 people and leveled an entire town. This tornado tonight is going to kill people. Just 15 minutes later at 7:15, the tornado finally touched down right outside of Fairdale. It was this massive, almost mile-wide tornado with over 200 mile an hour.
Oh man. You see, there's always people who are going to be like, oh, I've been here and I've seen everything. Then there's also the level of unprecedented stuff that you've never seen before. Things that you, like, Mother Nature doesn't play by your rules and doesn't live within the bounds of what you expect. Mother Nature is going to do whatever the damn well she pleases, and God save you if you're in the way. I hate to say it, but we're sort of at the mercy of the elements. I mean, human beings are pretty durable by the standards of a lot of things in the universe. But whenever the universe gives you this many warnings, this many, like, just warning signs of bad shit's coming, batten down the hatches or get the hell out of the way, and you don't do it, I'm sorry to say, but you're at fault. You're at fault for not listening.
Not to mention, like, I mean, this thing here, like, I was unaware that was a real thing that can happen, that big of a tornado. Like,
oh, yeah.
That sounds like something you'd only see in a horror movie regarding tornadoes from the 90s.
Like Twister? That one with Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt?
Because you would expect that a tornado is like a thing that you can see end to end of, you know, when it comes down. Like, you can see it coming at you, and you can see, like, you know, like, not a mile long by any stretch of the imagination. Like, maybe, like, fucking 100 yards long at the most.
Yes. Well, like, no, there's been tornadoes, like, the worst tornado outbreak. I know there's going to be people who try and correct me and say that the more modern ones, you know, 2011, 2015, the outbreaks that we've had there, yes, those did produce more tornadoes. But the 1974 super outbreak is the worst storm cell that has possibly ever existed in American history because of the amount of big tornadoes that came out of it. The amount of F4s and F5s that dropped down in the 1974 super outbreak. As a matter of fact, let's do a comparison real quick. I actually can look these up really simple. So, let's see. 2011 tornado. Yeah, there we are. Oh yeah, actually there was a 2011 outbreak. There we are. Super outbreak. So, during this, let's see, confirmed tornadoes, you had 11, this is 2011, you had 11 F4s and 5 F5s. Like, these are these here are bad. Like, these are really bad. These are catastrophic. These are what remove towns from the face of the earth. That is, like, these are the terrifying ones. And then, of course, you had the... See. Yeah, there's a 74 super outbreak. And then there was the 2015 tornado... 2015 tornado... here we are. That December... excuse me. Confirmed tornadoes. See, there wasn't even an F5 tornado in this one. There wasn't even an F5 tornado in this. But then, we go back, and we look at the 1974 super outbreak.
23 and 7.
Yeah.
Damn.
23 F4 tornadoes and 7 F5 tornadoes. So, almost doubling the amount of F5s and more than doubling the amount of F4s. And then that's not even, look, 34, 34, 38. And we go back to the 2011 one. And most of the, oh, dang it. There we are. And most of them are F1 or F0s. Whereas, you know, the concentration of the 1974 one is all over the map. But yeah, needless to say, it's like whenever something bad's coming your way, listen to the meteorological forecast, because it could potentially save your life.
And unlike other tornadoes of that size that typically move at about 30 miles an hour, this one was traveling on land at about 15 miles an hour, meaning it would be sitting over the areas it was devastating for longer amounts of time, making it even worse than some of the worst predictions that meteorologists had for this tornado. 15 minutes later at 7:30 p.m., 84-year-old Fairdale resident Clem Schultz and his wife Jerry Schultz, they were at home because they had decided to ride out the storm. As Clem is sitting in the living room watching the Weather Channel, kind of waiting for the last possible second to go into their basement, he hears his wife yell out from the kitchen to come in here and look at this. So Clem goes into the kitchen and she's pointing out the back window, and he looks out and he sees this massive tornado coming right at them. It's less than a mile away, and it is way bigger than he thought it was going to be. But from their perspective, because the tornado was spinning counterclockwise, it kind of looked like it was spinning away from town into this empty field. And Clem says to his wife Jerry, you know what, it looks like it's going to miss us, but we're probably going to lose power, so I'm going to go up into the attic and get some lanterns ready. So Jerry stays in the kitchen, Clem goes up into the attic, and as he's fishing to get out the lanterns, he hears what sounds like a freight train barreling through town, and he had this little window at the edge of his attic, so he goes over and he looks out, and the tornado had not veered off into the open field. It had continued straight towards his house, and it was ripping off roofs right in front of him. And he figured, I don't have enough time to go down into the basement. I have no time to do anything. So he takes out his phone and he begins recording.
Now, I'd say you have... that's sped up. You have enough time to do it. You have enough... I think you had enough time.
you already had enough time to fly down the stairs.
Yes. I mean, they're like this isn't like the Mount St. Helens eruption guy where he literally knew he was done.
Yeah.
There's plenty of opportunities for you to do something. It's just you chose not to. Jesus wept.
Yeah, I'm sorry, dude. I might have hurt myself, but I absolutely could have made it from our attic to right here before that got to me. In that amount of time.
But just look at how quickly.
So that dude literally just stood there and let himself be destroyed by a tornado.
Yeah, look at this shit, dude. I mean,
how did they even recover this footage? Jesus.
I don't know.
I don't know how that phone's not in fucking like the Pacific Ocean flung by that thing.
Yeah. Just look. Telephone poles, like trees, houses, everything just gets swallowed by the darkness.
Yeah.
Gone.
Clem's house, along with all the others in that video, collapsed. And initially, Clem thought he had died because it went totally quiet and it was totally dark.
I thought
he
Clem
actually
died.
said out loud, "Am I dead?" But it was the pain in his back from a crushed vertebrae that told him, "No, you survived." And he begins to kind of pull himself out of the rubble, and before long, a neighbor is pulling him out. And as soon as he's out of the rubble of his house, he looks around, and his whole community is pretty much gone. And as he's standing there kind of bewildered, his neighbor says, "Clem, don't look down." And Clem says, "Why?"
Oh, no.
And his neighbor says, "Because your wife is under you and she's dead." When the dust had finally settled, not only had Clem's wife been killed, but Clem's neighbor had been killed as well, because the tornado went directly through their two houses. That video that Clem shot is now used to educate people on how dangerous tornadoes really are, and how anytime a tornado is coming through your area, never go outside to film it, seek shelter.
Yeah, that's terrifying, man. I mean, my mom has explained to me, like, she and like my family, like my mom and my aunt and my grandma and grandpa both explained to me back when they were still alive. But they explained to me what it was like having to deal with a tornado, because they had to deal with tornadoes. Nothing terrible or catastrophic, but they were at a Piggly Wiggly one time down in Alabama, and one came barreling through, and they said it was one of the weirdest things ever, because they look outside and you know, those pools that you used to get, the, you know, like summer pools, you know, the ones you could sit outside and put water in. There were so many of them in the air. They said there were at least 20 of them in the air, just flying, just spinning around, and it was, and you couldn't hear yourself talk because it was so loud. The wind was just so like just destructive. I could never, like, I've never been in the middle of a tornado before, and I'm glad. Makes me really, really thankful that we live in the area that we live, because tornadoes are not as prevalent around here.
Yeah, there's enough hills and mountains that they get knocked down before they get too bad most of the time.
Yeah.
We did have one come and rip the back off of the Hobby Lobby in Kingsport one time, though.
Yes, that is something. And then also...
That's one of the worst ones I can remember since I've been alive, though.
Then there was also the one down in Withful, which, you know, I've driven through there multiple times since then. The damage is still there. Like, you can see the ground where the ground was, like, literally ripped up from this thing. It was a level 3. And you think that's the kind of damage a level 3 does. Imagine what a 4 or 5 would have done blowing through there, man.
On Sunday, February 12th, 2017, Abigail Williams was over her best friend, Liberty German's house for a sleepover.
Abigail
Abby and
Williams.
Libby were 13 and 14, respectively. That night, as they're laying in bed, they were looking out the
Wait,
window.
when did he
hoping
say?
they saw snow.
2017?
On Sunday, February 12th, 2017,
Yeah, 2017.
we're looking out the
Who
window.
the fuck
were
named their
13
kid
and 14.
Abigail Williams? What the hell?
Respectively.
That
night,
is
as
who
they're
I'm
laying
thinking
in
of.
bed,
Is it?
they
Hang
were
on
looking
one
out the
second.
window,
I gotta Google this.
Oh no. He's Googling, everybody.
You've heard of Abigail Williams, right?
Maybe I have. Sorry, a lot of shit rolls together for me, dude. Who's Abigail Williams?
Yeah. Was among one of the first of the children to falsely accuse their neighbors of witchcraft in 1692.
I don't think they're like the people who are.
Whoever named their child that probably didn't realize.
I
what
don't
were
think
doing.
they care. Like from 1692, you said?
Yeah, the fucking Salem witch trials.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't think people like. There are people like. Keep in mind, there are people out there who are not even aware of the Salem witch trials.
Yeah, I
Just
guess.
like how there are people out there who are not aware of a lot of stuff out there historically.
Also, this doesn't necessarily have to be in America, I guess, too. Like, so, like,
hoping they saw snowflakes.
it's obviously an influence event in American history, but not the entire world doesn't necessarily have to know about it, because I don't know about the entire history of the rest of the world either. So,
Yeah.
down because there was apparently this huge storm that was going to roll through the next day, and they were hoping that if it did, school would be canceled the next day. But when they woke up the next morning, it hadn't even snowed. However, they found out that in Delphi, Indiana, where they lived, school had been canceled preemptively in anticipation of this big storm that never really amounted to anything. So the girls got a free day off where they could actually go outside and enjoy it. So the girls start talking about how they're going to spend their extra day off. And Libby suggests, well, why don't we go check out the Monon High Bridge? It was this abandoned bridge that crossed over the stream, and a lot of their classmates would take pictures on it and post it to their social media, and the girls figured this is a great day to go do that. So Libby asked...
I know where this is going. I remember this story.
seems like I may have heard something about this before.
This story enrages the shit out of me. And it makes
her grandmother, Becky, who was her primary caretaker, if it would be okay if they went for a hike over near this bridge. Becky gives them permission, but with the caveat that they would find their own ride there and back. So Libby convinces her older sister, Kelsey, to give them a ride there, and Libby speaks to her father, Derek, and he says he can pick them up. But he'd only be able to pick them up at a very specific time, which would only give the girls a couple of hours at the bridge, but they thought that was fine and that was plenty of time. So a couple hours later, at about 1:30 in the afternoon, Kelsey drops off the two girls at the start of the trail that's going to bring them to this bridge. We know the girls made it to the bridge because at 2:07 p.m., Libby posted a picture to her social media of Abby walking across the bridge. At 3:11 p.m., Libby's father, Derrick, texted her and said, "Hey, I'm going to be there in a minute. Just want to make sure you guys are there to meet me." And she didn't text Derrick back, and Derrick would later say that that was pretty unusual for her. At 3:14 p.m., Derrick arrives at the meeting spot, and the girls are nowhere to be found. And so Derrick tries calling. There's no answer. He texts his daughter, no response. And so he ends up calling Becky, Libby's grandmother, his mother, and says, "Hey, did the girls contact you and change plans about where I was picking them up or when?" And Becky said, "No, I haven't heard from them. They said they'd be there at 3. They should be there now. I haven't heard from them." And Derrick says he can't get in touch with them. So for the next 10 minutes, Becky and her husband, Mike, Libby's grandfather, just try calling over and over and over again to the girls, but nothing's going through. They can't get them to respond to text messages. So Mike leaves and meets up with Derrick in the parking lot, and the two of them begin walking the trail to try to find these girls. At this point, the family's not suspecting foul play. They're thinking, the girls probably got lost, or they lost track of time, or their phones just ran out of batteries, or maybe they did get hurt and they can't move, but it's probably not that serious. They're creating scenarios in their head to rationalize what's happening. But by the time the sun went down at about 5 p.m. and there was still no sign of these girls, they ended up calling the police and officially reporting the girls missing. By 6 p.m. that night, there is this massive search combing the trail looking for these girls, but all night, they're looking everywhere with hundreds of searchers, and there's no sign of them. The following day, on Tuesday, February 14th, one of the searchers was about a half mile away from the bridge.
That was not good trigger discipline, by the way.
No, it wasn't.
Where the girls have been taking those
pointing that gun right at his fellow officer's leg
right next to a creek. The police didn't release their cause of death. However, they said without a doubt this is a homicide, because apparently the scene was incredibly disturbing and had at least 2 or 3 signatures. Signatures are things done to the victims that are above and beyond what is required to end their life. Things like writing on the victims or their body position, or much, much worse. And usually you only see signatures when you're dealing with a serial killer. 3 days after the bodies were discovered, police were able to extract some video from Libby's phone. It turns out when Libby was taking those pictures of Abby on the bridge and had just posted it to social media, apparently this guy had come on the bridge and Libby must have sensed danger and she began filming him. Now, there is apparently a video that starts from the bridge and lasts all the way through the girls' final moments, but the police would release a very small snippet of this recording because it showed who they believe is the killer walking towards them with his hands in his pockets looking down, and he says to them, "Guys, down the hill." Down the hill. Down the hill. Despite thousands of tips pouring in as soon as this video was made public, they still don't know who this guy is, no arrests have been made, and the case remains unsolved.
Yeah. Yeah. That one... Be careful out there, everybody. Be careful going on trips, because I know that
that sounds like something that someone who watched over that property would say to someone who wasn't supposed to be there, though. As in, hey, you're not supposed to be here on the bridge. Go back down the hill.
But it's public property,
or something like that.
But it's public property.
Is it?
Yeah, the Monon High Bridge is public property.
It also doesn't look safe at all to just be walking across.
It's basically proceed at your own risk, dude. That's how a lot of these places are.
Yeah,
you proceed at your own risk. I mean, it's no, that dude killed them. There's no doubting that, because of the fact that the 2 girls are dead, and the fact that something bad happened to them, and apparently the full video that the police have but can't release, which I understand why 100%. I don't think it should ever be released to the public. Basically, you probably hear that guy, telling them, get down on your hands and knees, hands behind your head and stuff like that. Put your phone down, stuff like that. He probably says stuff like that. I mean, honestly, it's just...
maybe. I don't know. Can't really know without seeing it,
No, but for me, that guy, I hope he is eventually found, and I hope that he is ran up against the wall for what he did. But anyway.
Before The Bachelorette pitted 30 men against each other to win one woman's heart, Americans watched another show about random strangers competing for a mate. It was called The Dating Game. Starting in 1965, this reality show featured a woman asking 3 men questions without seeing their faces, and based on their answers, at the end of the show, she would choose one to go on a date with. On the surface, the September 13th, 1978 showing of The Dating Game looks like every other episode with lots of unsubtle innuendo, but this episode would go down in history as a one-of-a-kind, and not in a good way. At the end of this particular show, it was time for the Bachelorette, Cheryl Bradshaw, to make her decision, and she would choose Bachelor number 1, who would turn out to be this tall, good-looking, long-haired guy whose name was Rodney. Rodney comes around the partition and they see each other for the first time and everybody laughs and they hug.
Rodney.
And the show looks like every other show, and on stage, Rodney looks like every other contestant that's ever been on the show. But after the show ended and Cheryl and Rodney went backstage and actually began having a real conversation that was not being filmed, Cheryl would say that Rodney completely changed. He became incredibly creepy and was saying things like, "I always get the girl." And then at some point he says, "Hey, you should come out with me tonight. It'll be a date you'll never forget." And she turns to him and just says, "No thanks." This would turn out to be a really wise decision because Rodney was a horrible person. Had the show done a background check on Rodney, they would have discovered that he assaulted an 8-year-old and went to jail for 3 years for it and was currently on parole.
Jesus.
But even if they had done a background check on Rodney, the check would not have discovered what he did at night. Rodney was shamelessly cocky and self-confident, and unlike a lot of men, he had no issue walking right up to any woman anywhere and flirting with her. And he used that to his advantage. He would go up to women in bars and he would convince them that he was a fashion photographer and that they were so beautiful, would you come back to my apartment and do a photo shoot with me? And just like Cheryl on the dating show, these women were immediately kind of charmed by him and would say yes. Once they got back to his apartment, he would shut and lock the door and then become that creepy guy that Cheryl saw backstage. But unlike Cheryl, who at the time she saw this just said, "I'm not interested," and was able to leave, these women were trapped, and then whether they wanted to or not, they would do a photo shoot with him and then he would strangle them to death. Because Rodney Alcala was not your typical dating game contestant. He was a serial killer who, by the time he stepped foot on that show and was
That's who I
chosen
thought
by
they were
Cheryl
talking
Bradford
about.
to win the game, he had already killed 4 people. And over a 2-year period, he killed as many as 130 people, which, if you're doing the math, is over those 2 years, he was killing at least 1 person a week. Alcala was finally apprehended and he was sentenced to death. Here are some highlights from Rodney Alcala's episode of The Dating Game.
And we're going to start by having them say hello to you and see how they sound. Number 1, would you say hello to Cheryl, please?
We're going to have a great time together, Cheryl.
Okay, and here we go.
Bachelor number 1,
Yes.
what's your best time?
The best time is at night, nighttime,
Why do you say that?
because that's the only time there is.
The only time? What's wrong with morning, afternoon?
Well, they're okay, but nighttime's when it really gets good.
Bachelor number 1, I am serving you for dinner.
Oh,
What are you called and what do you look like?
I'm called the banana, and I look really good.
Can you be a little more descriptive?
Peel me.
I'm going to ask you a question. Will that date be Bachelor number 1, Bachelor number 2, or Bachelor number 3? Who gets the dates?
Well, I like bananas, so I'll take 1.
Number 1, Bachelor number 1, all right. He's a skydiver, so he's got a lot of nerve. He's into motorcycling. He's also
Something like
fine.
oddly creepy about his eyes.
Yeah.
So I was trying to like look and see if I could spot anything, and I'm just like, if you look at his eyes, they're just something about the way they
1.
don't move very much.
Yeah.
Like, he's staring, like, straight ahead, like, and then he looks over, like, one time here in a second.
He's a skydiver.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
It's like that slightest glance.
He's got a lot of nerve. He's into motorcycling. He's also a fine photographer. Say hello to Rodney Alcala. Rodney, come on and say hello. Congratulations, Rod. You did it with a one answer.
So that's going to
Yeah.
do it, guys. I hope you enjoyed today's stories. Let me know what you thought in the comments, and I will pin the best comment at the top of the comments section. If you enjoyed today's video and you haven't done this already, please offer to give the like button a ride home from soccer practice, but don't show up. Also, please subscribe to this channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of my weekly uploads. If you want to get in touch with me, you can direct message me on Instagram or on Twitter. My username is the same for both platforms. It's just JohnBallin416. I also have a ton of content over on TikTok. My username over there is Mr. Ballin. If you have a story suggestion, please submit it to our subreddit just called Mr. Ballin. It's linked in the description below. So whether I see you on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Reddit, YouTube, or some combination, I just really appreciate your support. And until next time, guys, that's going to do it. See ya.
Damn. Some creepy, creepy stuff, dude.
Yeah.
That's some just absolute messed up stuff. So, I'll just say it, man. I mean, you never know who someone really is until, like, in some ways you see them at their most, like confident, I guess you could say. Like, when they have complete confidence in themselves and they can turn into a different person. And it's unfortunate that, that many people had to die because of Rodney Alcala. I mean, let's see. There he is. Oh, Lord. And it's unfortunate that he was named the dating game killer. I mean, yeah, but convicted of 8, possibly up to 130. Washington, California, New York, and Wyoming. And he was apprehended. He was apprehended a year after that. He was apprehended in 1979. Sheesh. And apparently he'd been active since 1968. So, man, I don't know, dude. There's a lot of stuff surrounding this. I just sends a shiver down my spine. Shit I don't like.
Yeah. Skeezy as hell.
Yes, very much so. God. But anyway, everyone, I think that's going to do it for this. These were top 3 videos with disturbing backstories, part 2. And if you enjoyed what you saw here and want to see more from Mr. Ballin, feel free to click his name in the title of the video. He's very rapidly approaching 10 million subs, which is awesome. I mean, he's over 7 million now, and I'm really anticipating whenever he hits 10 million. For right now, or until the next time, everyone, I'm Nate.
I'm Nick.
Take care, everyone. Peace.